Afternoon, evening, whatever time you're tuning in the program called What's Going On FlintTalkRadio.com. I'm George Moss, the host of the program, and I'm very delighted to see you out there this afternoon. We're starting, as always, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we stay here from 2 o'clock to 3, and we are glad to have you on board. Of course, you can tune the program in at any time at your leisure at FlintTalkRadio.com, and we are the number one podcast program, I should say the studio. My program is not number one, but we're trying to get there. But we are the number one podcast studio in Genesee County. And as always, working very hard to keep your attention here to the studio and what we do here. And want you to tune in all the programs here that are aired from time to time throughout the week. And during the second Monday, and I think this is the 14th, so yep, this is second Monday. That means Catherine Hunter Williams and Miss Catherine Blake will be here this afternoon at 3:30, and they stay around for about 30 minutes. And I'm sure they have some great things going on since they just finished up a series of programs on women. Since last month was Women's Month, we had to make something. We have to make April something, some kind of month for April. You just can't just be April showers. Or the month of my birthday. That's important.
Your birthday's in April?
I had a birthday yesterday.
Oh, so happy birthday.
Don't you dare ask me how many years has it been now.
I got a good idea.
You're pretty good idea there. I reached a milestone, by the way, but I'm not sharing with anybody out there because you started sending me flowers thinking that it's over. And face it, guys, it's over. You know, it's a song. It's not over until it's over. That's Yogi Berra.
Okay, I know you don't like the current Paul POTUS, but President of the United States. But did you ever think in your lifetime, because you grew up, you were born and raised before, the segregated South, did you ever think you were going to see a black president?
Yeah, I did, because I never thought the country was as flawed as they were saying it was, and this idea that the country was so racist and it saturated every one of the pores of the nation. I never bought into that. And there's no evidence historically that is true.
If it was true, then people just marching up. I mean, the civil rights movement was a struggle. I'm not going to. And there were some people who died. Mm-hmm. But relatively, if you look at the civil rights movement compared to what any ethnic or religious minority in other countries have to go through, endure, mm-hmm. It was. I'm not going to say it's a cakewalk, but it was very easy in comparison.
Yes.
I mean, like in France, they've had 10,000. The Huguenots were killed by the Catholics in the 1600s, late 1500s, 1600s. 10,000 people were killed in over a matter of a couple of days mm-hmm. in and around Paris. Protestants, Right. So, I mean, the body count for the civil rights movement was nowhere near that.
Right. Well, if you take the most virulent racism we have today in America, it is made up racism. And you see evidence of it by the fact that we have all of these movies coming out, not about things that are going on right now, but going back into the very distant past. I mean, 12 Years a Slave wasn't about anything that's taking place right now. It goes back before 1865. Oprah goes over to Switzerland, and she's finding racism in the store where they wouldn't sell her, quote unquote, a purse, which basically was just miscommunication between two people who had different kinds of linguistic understandings of what was being said, and that becomes racism. So when you look at that as one element of it, you can see that much of it is much ado about nothing. But I want to make another point, something that occurred last week in our study group. We studied this book by Roden called $40 Million Slaves. And the book has a lot of, there are some good things about the book, but the book is certainly mistitled, Slaves Don't Get Paid. And you can't call a person making $40 million a slave if he's being paid for his labor. Roden is even upset by the fact that they don't own the team. Well, most of the players that are playing basketball, black or white, don't own the team. If they own the team, they wouldn't be out there on the basketball court, be up there managing the affairs of the basketball team or the football team. But they want to make that into something that is about racism, and it has nothing to do with that. I would say one thing that they talk about in that book called $40 Million Slaves is that Roden didn't understand a point he made about Bear Bryant, who was a coach the premier coach at the University of Alabama, and he thought that Bryant had to be pushed into bringing blacks on the playing field at the university. What he did not understand as he put the year in 1970, which was a marquee year for two different events, one of which was that Grambling was playing Morgan State at Yankee Stadium, and they filled that stadium up with these two black schools playing football. They never thought they could bring that many fans from all over the country to this football game. But also in 1970, USC played the University of Alabama in Birmingham. Rhoden doesn't understand that Bear Bryant brought USC in there in 1970 after having played them out in California in 1969, and he had an ulterior motive in terms of bringing that team in there. When they beat University of Alabama the preceding year, Bear Bryant told the coach, "We want this team in Birmingham next year," and brought him in there at the very beginning of the season in 1970. And those guys, they had this guy named Sam Bam Bam Cunningham, the guy that was 6'3", weighed 235 pounds. And this guy would put his head down, and wherever the line was, just put his head down, just moving back there, the whole line would move. And that's how big this guy was. And Bear Bryant wanted the South, the University of Alabama, who had barred some blacks from going into the school to study in the classroom. So this is what he was up against. He never was going along with that program. This was the policies imposed by the politicians. And he told the coach at USC to come into Birmingham the following year and play them in Birmingham, in Alabama, in the heart of Dixie, so that the politicians who were imposing this policy upon the entire state could be moved to the side. He couldn't do it, but if persons saw that segregation was disadvantaging the football team, which is where they were, they wanted a good football team. And they didn't want their football team pushed across the field. So what Bear Bryant did was bring a team in there that would push them across the field. And they had Sam Bam Cunningham running by his players, pushing them out of the way. And had some guys, I forget the guy's name that played tight end, he's running right by them. They beat them 42-21. The next day, in the coffee shops, they were up there talking about, look, those guys were running right by our players. And they pushed the politicians off the dime.
Football's a religion down south.
It's a religion down south, and Lou Saban, who is the coach down there now, he goes down there because he's the winning coach at Michigan State. And if he's not down there winning, he's not going to be there very long. That's a very competitive league. And Bear Bryant had an ulterior motive in bringing the football team in there because he wanted them to see that we can recruit the players in our own state, and all these great football players are feeding into other schools, making their teams great, and we're being hurt by it. And it's one of the he was a hero, and he has not been identified for the heroic things he did in terms of bringing that about. But after that game was over, you can believe that these politicians that were maintaining the segregationist wherewithal in that state, they were pushed to the side. They were made to bend. It wasn't the classroom when they tried to get them into the classroom. When that didn't work, then it came by way of football. And Rhoden is upset in that book called $40 Million Slaves. He's upset because one of the persons that realized the civil rights aspect of that game said that sports did more than Martin Luther King did in the Great South. And he took some exception to that because he thought that they pushed Bear Bryant into it. Bear Bryant was a man that was in back of it. And so this idea of the South was saturated and the country was saturated with racism, I never bought that. And I'm not surprised at all to see we have a black president because of the fundamental fairness of the American people. That you cannot convince me is not true, because I've seen too many signs of it, and I know exactly what was in fact feeding the segregation in the South. And we have not really told the whole story about what was going on down in the civil rights movement. They make it seem like King was trying to move all of the people in the South off of the public dime, and all of them were interested in keeping black folks down. Most of them were just trying to raise their own families. And in the South, the black community was on this block, and then around the block was where the white community was, sometimes on the same street. and you went into the theater, you went into the same, look folks, You went into the same theater with whites during the segregationist South. The politicians were making them. We sat in the balcony, went up the stairs and sat in the balcony, and the whites sat down on the first floor. We are in the same theaters, but they have to have the separation between the two groups, and so the owner wants both groups in there because he's making more money. The more patrons he gets, he's getting. It's only a dime to get in there. If he only get the dimes on the ones downstairs, he hasn't made any money.
Yeah, here's the kicker, though. When I was at U of M, they used to have this area on the second floor of the University Center. They used to have a room that you could go listen to music. You got a pair of headphones. They kept them at this desk, and you got to listen to them. Well, it's now the Alfred P. Loving Cultural Center. Well, the black students at U of M's campus there, of the U of M Flynn's campus, initially initiated this thing so they can have their own room.
Yeah.
Because they said they felt out of place. So, in a sense, the black students at U of M Flint, in my opinion, resegregated themselves.
That's what's happened, and we have to recognize that as being true. I'm not going to pull in the punches here. I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm not Kobe Bryant type. In terms of the comments that Kobe Bryant made, which were very reasoned and reasonable in what he said. In terms of you can't just take a side because one person is black, another person not black, and you take a position based upon the amount of melanin in the person's skin. You can't make decisions like that. And he made a very reasonable comment and was talking about the Trayvon Martin case. And they criticized him. They began to talk about boycotting his product. They never did make an argument, a counter argument about why that would not really be feasible as a position to take. They wanted to argue him down. They didn't want to argue him. They wanted to make him shut up. And what happens in these cases here, it won't happen in my case, but it happens in cases of people that basically don't have any principles, like Kobe Bryant, who already owns, has $75 million of wealth after his divorce is over from his wife because he couldn't stop from being in bedrooms that he was not, or the person he was not married to. And that rape allegation that he faced in Colorado was just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I don't mean he was raping everybody, but when the allegation was made, people were surprised because Kobe had this squeaky clean persona that he was simply married to this beautiful girl, was dating her when she was in high school, and when she finished high school, 18 years old, they got married, and he was so much in love with her that he didn't even want a prenuptial agreement. So that was Kobe, the public Kobe. But you go out of town and your wife's back here, and there are people throwing things at you and things like that. And he was that basketball player that Bill Russell talked about, who said if the hotels where the teams would go would be bombed, they had to run out the dorm and out the hotels and all that, you'd be surprised to be running out of those rooms. That's the way it is. I mean, sports is like that. All of the sports are like that. Music too. And he had that squeaky clean image, which I never bought into, but it was surprising to a lot of people. What really disgusted me about him was that he made a principal statement, and because they were threatening to boycott, I think he advertises gear, sports equipment, the shoes that they put out. They all got a basketball player, pushing their shoes, and we can't buy no shoes unless the athletes tell us they jumping out of the gym in them. So they get him to advertise the shoes. I wouldn't buy anything that he sells now because once I see there's no principle there, then I don't have anything to do with anything this person pushes. Because if he won't stand up on principle, I don't know if he's selling a product that has the quality that he's trying to sell. So that's just the way I am. But they were going to boycott him because he told the truth. And he fails to understand what I understand all too well, and that is that these people over there on that side of the fence, the political side of the fence and the racial side of the fence, they don't have any political arguments. They don't even have factual arguments. They have character arguments. And that's why he had to be an Uncle Tom, Jim Brown, telling us that he doesn't know who he is, and that he has been wearing that name all his life. And his mother knew who he was. She didn't call him Bill Clinton. She called him Kobe Bryant. I think he knew who he was, because I'm sure that he had some brothers and sisters. And when they called the others, I don't think he came when the others were being called, but when they called his name, I think he was one that went in there to see what they wanted. And this idea he didn't know who he was because they disagree with his position, so he can't be right But yet they didn't argue with his position, just simply told him that he's a sellout, and they started his name calling. And it works for some people. I just can't understand why people succumb when it happens, because I just wish. I mean, it makes me stronger. In fact, I don't want to go through life where everyone is patting me on the back and telling me what a great job I did, and I agree with your point. I get really embarrassed by people telling me. I write on the Facebook wall. I get embarrassed when people come on my wall telling me that complimentary things. I'm not writing to be complimented. I'm writing to be confrontational.
I don't think you know how to handle if somebody says something about you appreciate that. It's like you're scratching your head. Is this being ironic?
Yeah, right.
Are you being sarcastic, honey?
Yeah.
You bring your wife in there, have her look at the statement.
Yeah. I've already said at my funeral. Not that I'm going to have a funeral. I'm not even going to have a funeral. I'm going to be cremated and all that. But I was saying at my funeral, if anybody's up there on the mic and they're looking and they are saying nice things about me, I want somebody to look over there and see if that's me laying in that box, because I don't need that, and I don't expect that in my moment when I cannot respond to any of the compliments. And don't be bringing the flowers. Bring a bowl of soup.
That's why I don't want a funeral for, because I don't get a chance for rebuttal at the end of the eulogy, so I don't want a funeral.
Right. I want 5 minutes rebuttal time if they start saying anything that's complimentary. I just don't think we have to go through life, trying to please everybody. The question is, what kind of person are you? And are you pleasing to yourself in terms you understand that you are somebody that's important and that you have a point of view that you have studied, tried to get the right, understanding of it, and you stand upon that until proven otherwise. If someone can show me at the same time that the position I hold is not consequential and not really factually rendered and based, I think I should be man enough to say that I made an error. And now that I've been shown a better way of looking at a circumstance, because I don't have all the answers. I have some answers, but I don't have all the answers. And anyone that has some answers on some things I don't have answers to, then I want to hear those answers. I certainly have more answers than the politicians have. They don't have any answers. And I'm willing to change my mind. And really, I have to say this, and I'm going to get back to what I wanted to talk about, because I want to talk about basically two topics, and that is I want to discuss the situation out there in Nevada. And I want to have a small amount of time, a little bit amount of time left over to discuss something that I think we need to know more about, and that is how money works in this society, so we can prepare ourselves, because it's going to rain, and we're not talking about when it rains, it pours, and that's on that box of Morton salt. I'm talking about when it's going to rain in this country, and we have got to understand what we are in terms of on all of the economic indicators. I want to talk about that before we get off the air today. But I do want to say that you have to have something that you're willing to stand on. And if people can come by and just simply show you their disagreement, and that's enough to move you off your position without them showing any additional evidence through which you can make a determination that changes what you had determined was true before they gave you that information, I think if you do other than that, I think it's unprincipled. In Colbert's case, they didn't offer any additional information about the Trayvon Martin case. They didn't say that here's something else that you did not know and here's what you didn't consider. They didn't even argue the evidence. And what were they going to say anyway? If he said that you should consider the evidence, what were they going to argue anyway? Were they going to say that you should not consider the evidence and make up your mind without looking at the facts? They couldn't say that publicly, and they didn't say it. And he still changed his mind because, later on that day on Twitter, he got on there and said Trayvon Martin was mistreated and he was wronged and so on and so forth. Didn't say what he based it on. If he had said that I didn't know X, Y, and Z, and I found out A, B, and C, and that's what rendered my verdict now different than the verdict I had earlier, I would have some respect for the change in his position. But he changed his position because people were threatening to boycott the products that he tries to advertise he does advertise. They try to sell on behalf of the competitors that he's selling merchandise for. And if he doesn't have as much credibility as some of the others are on the other selling another product, then their product gets sold and his product he's advertising is being hurt. And who wants to have him as a spokesman for the product if he's hurting the brand that he's advertising for? That doesn't work. So he wanted to go out there and get back in good graces with those who were his critics. He might have sold more shoes if he had shown some resolve, because people like to see a person that has character, because it brings something to your product. If you have character, somebody's going to want that product because they see your person has integrity. And he thought that he can't sell if he does have integrity. Integrity does sell. And it's just unfortunate he would do that. But no, I'm not surprised we have a black president. I wish we could have, because I didn't base it on Sharpton and Jesse Jackson either. You couldn't convince me the nation was racist because they didn't elect those two jokers to the presidency. Here these guys are. They haven't even been elected to a dog catcher. Neither one of them has ever been elected to a political office in their entire lives. And they're running for president. And then we're supposed to believe if they don't win, they haven't been a senator, haven't been a state legislator, haven't been a governor, and haven't been a member of the House of Representatives. They're running for president. And if they don't get it, I'm supposed to assume that it's because the nation is racist. I mean, I don't make those kinds of judgments. And I knew the country was ready for a black president if the president can show the kind of credentials that would show that he's ready and able to run the country. And they put one in there that's not able to do that so fair. So much where they're trying to be fair that they were willing to put somebody there that was not able to do the job and had not done the job in the first 4 years. And they put him in there again out of this sense of fairness. Sometimes fairness can hurt you. And we're being hurt by it now. And I can't hardly wait till this guy. I know you're going to be writing on my Facebook wall about this. And when you write on there, you're going to get something back in return. That's where that works. But you come on my wall with that nonsense. I say, you think Kobe Bryant, we may all look alike. We don't all look alike. No, nobody looks like twins have some characteristics that are different. But you come on my wall with that stuff that you put on Kobe Bryant and try to change my mind. You're wasting your time. And some of my students thought they were going to do that. Mr. Moss, we can remember when you taught black history and you said this about Malcolm X. I still say it about Malcolm X, but I say some more about him as well. Like I know more. And I'll tell you this. I don't have any respect for anybody that said something 30 years ago and they say the same thing right now, as if they can't learn anything beyond that point. You know, I'm a lot older now, and I'm a lot wiser now.
Muhammad Ali said, "If you were like same person you were 25 years ago, then you wasted that time. You know, if you're not different, you know."
Yeah. What is your problem that you're mouthing the same thing today that you said 30 years ago, as if there's nothing that you learned from your childhood or during the time you were being intellectually incubated in classrooms, where you're in a classroom, here are your books, here's your test, and you got to pass that in order to get through the university. And what do you know? You know the book, you know the test, you know what the teacher taught, you took the notes on it, and you got out of the school for a degree. You don't know that much because you've been kind of fine-tuned and pigeonholed and trained narrowly in a particular discipline. Now, when I talk to doctors at the university, I'm amazed, quite frankly, that they are prolific in the fields in which they studied. But if you ask them a question outside of their training, they get very uncomfortable. And they'll say that, well, I'm not really trained in that area. Well, can you think in another channel? I mean,
you ever hear what William F. Buckley said about Shelley Winters? It was in one of his books. It was like he said she stated outright that she didn't know much about politics, and then she went on to overly demonstrate that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand you can't be a master of everything, but at least you could have some understanding of it, and to the point where you can be coherent in discussing it. I don't claim to be a scientist, but I certainly know more about global warming, then these scientists know, if that's what they're saying and if that's what they actually believe, that they start talking in these terms about the vortex of the polar cap and all that, trying to talk beyond your understanding as if they know what they're talking about, and then tell us that you have global warming because you're emitting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and your carbon footprint is causing the globe to warm. And I know how vast the universe that we live in is, and we're in a galactic world as well, and that's also much more of a outreach into what we call outer space. And they're going to tell us you can warm it up by carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what we're breathing. We're taking in we're taking in oxygen, letting out carbon dioxide. They're trying to act like that carbon dioxide is a toxin. I mean, you got to be really. You must have not taken any science if you believe that. I learned that in fifth grade. That carbon dioxide. I mean, go. If you really that frightened by your carbon footprint, then just breathe next to a tree, because your carbon dioxide is nutrition. Now I tell you what you do. Let's suck out, since telling us carbon dioxide is a bad thing, let's just suck out all the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. I tell you this, life goes out on the planet.
Yeah, if we had pure oxygen, we'd still also die. I mean,
you die.
The general environment's only 18% oxygen.
That's right. You would die, because what you have here is that you don't have anything taking the carbon dioxide in and replacing the oxygen that you breathe. But you're not the only one that's breathing on the planet. Anything that is living on the earth is in fact breathing. And if it has life, it takes in some of that that's in the atmosphere. And even in the water, you have H2O. There's oxygen in there, and you have to replace that. You see those plants over there in the water? That's what those plants are doing. And this replacement factor, nature is a recycling center, and it recycles everything that it produces. If it produces a person, a human being is a being made out of carbon, and they take in oxygen, and they got carbon, which they produce carbon and oxygen, which really I think is where the life energy is located, because as you're spelling carbon, you are decreasing the carbon in the human makeup, and there's how much carbon are you expiring, and I think that's what the expiration date is about. We have a carbon footprint, but we have a footprint in which the carbon will at some point diminish to the point. You see, you're diminishing carbon. Carbon is a life force, but they want to act like it's a toxin. But if that were the case, none of us would be here, because you have to have carbon to have life. But you can't tell it to Al Gore, because he doesn't have respect. The man should understand that he's just as limited as a person trained in a particular field, and he's a politician, didn't know anything. I don't know what school he went to, but I bet his girlfriend's taking most of his tests the way he sounds. But he wants us to believe that you're actually adding to the global warming that's taking place because of the ice cap that is melting. And we're not supposed to know that the ice cap at the two different polar regions are acting in polar opposite of each other, not only because they're in the different polar caps, one to the north, one to the south, but because they are in fact sitting on different objects. One is sitting on the Antarctic land space to the south, and then the other one to the north is sitting on the Arctic Ocean. And water melts ice, so you're going to have some melting in that region, and you won't have it in the southern region. In fact, the ice cap in the southern region is in fact expanding, and you have two different things going on. And if there was a single thing causing it, which would be global warming, you'd have the same effect in both the north region and the south region, because they're both at the same distance from the equator, which is the warmest part of the earth. And we're getting ready to celebrate the that equinox next Sunday, which you call Easter. Some of that is to celebrate the heat. Because one person called me today and asked me to come to one of the places where they can actually celebrate what they claim is the day in which Easter should be celebrated, saying that it can happen every Sunday, sometimes in March and sometimes in April, whose birthday is like that. So there's a date for the event, and they're claiming in their congregation that today marks that time period, what you call the crucifixion or the resurrection, and so on. Well, it also has an aspect to it that has something to do with the seasons. And those of you who are doing the celebration through the religious institutions, that's certainly admirable and should be admired for those who take that understanding and operate upon it, and then live the tenets of that which they profess to believe in. That to me is that if you're living it, then that's admirable. And this person that called me does in fact do that. But the other aspect of it is that they celebrate Easter, and the other Christians put it as the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the during the vernal equinox, and that has to do with when the sun is directly overhead. It cuts the equator at the midpoint, and the sun, by cutting the equator at the midpoint, is being crucified, and therefore, at that point, you have equal day and equal night, and then after that is over, the sun goes into a period of decline because it's being crucified in terms of the fact that the day grows shorter and the nightfall grows longer. And that's why you keep going back and forth between fall back, spring forward, fall back. And you change the calendar back and forth like that because you are actually responding to the seasons. And sometimes it would be, it's always going to be, you're going to have what is called fall. Really should start March the 21st, although this time they told us to start around March the 10th. But if you notice that Easter is sometimes in March and sometimes in April, and that's what they're actually responding to. It's not just a religious principle there, but it's also a seasonal thing that they're observing too, in terms of how the universe operates. Well, Al Gore would understand that if you gave him a head start and told him to read chapter 1, and then you're not going to start reading until maybe 2 weeks later, and give him a two-week head start, he still wouldn't know what he's talking about. And he doesn't even understand that, we have a lunar calendar and we have a solar calendar, but does he understand we also got a stellar calendar? And you got the moon calendar where you have 28 days in the calendar, and because it goes through 4 stages, you have 7 to 8 weeks because of that. And then you have the solar calendar where it takes the Earth 365 days, 365.22 days to navigate around the sun, because the Earth is not just turning on its axis, also it is going around in orbit around the sun, and it takes about 365.22 days in order to do that. Nor does he know that there's also another year nobody talks about, and that's the 25,000 year, where you're not only, since the Earth wobbles, it's turning at 23.5 degree angle, like that. The Earth, therefore, when it's going into its rotation, is actually going in an elliptical pattern. That's what explains some of the weather patterns that you're looking at. It goes into an elliptical kind of pattern. It doesn't just turn that way. It's going like this. And it goes into another calendar we don't talk about. That calendar is 3,714 years apiece. And because there's 7 of them, that calendar lasts 25,000 years. And that's the one everybody's talking about, quite frankly, when we talk about what your sign is. I quit, some of my girlfriends quit me because they were asking me what my sign was, as if the sign changed every month. And the sign doesn't change but every 3,000 some odd years, because there's another calendar that they've gotten confused about, and they think they dated upon the solar calendar. Well, Al Gore wouldn't know any of that. And the teachers at the University of Michigan, unless they studied science, they wouldn't know that either, because they all trained in this one field. You get them out of that, then they're lost. But I try to be comprehensive in a lot of different areas, and I do a lot of studying in all the areas just so we can have a conversation about it in case that's where you want to go. But what people are surprised about in my case, and I think this is where it really gets them, they think because I'm a conservative, that I assign myself a higher moral ground than what they assign. So they start name calling, and most conservatives, they say, for example, which it really telling you to shut up, you're racist. And here comes these conservatives who make me sick. And they all appear discussing they're not racist.
It goes back to the old thing, asking a guy, do you still beat your wife?
Yeah,
of course,
right.
if he beats his wife, he's going
Right.
to deny it. And if he's totally innocent, every denial is going to sound stupid.
Yeah, that's right.
So he's sounds like he's of course he's going to lie about it. So you can't disprove a negative.
You can't disprove it, and that's why they win. They're not winning the argument. What they're not doing, quite frankly, is having an argument, and they are in fact getting you into a conversation you can't win because the argument is the allegation. So they say you're racist, and then when you come back, in my case, see, they don't say it as much now because they don't come behind me and try to prove any of my points wrong, because I don't write unless I do the research before I write. Sometimes I don't have to do the research, but sometimes when there's a question, I will do some research, and once I write it, I go back and check behind myself before I post it. So I think what I put up there is is pretty accurate. Sometimes I guess I'd say, well, the sun doesn't travel at 186,000 miles per hour. Well, I knew that, but I had made a mistake. So when they said it's 186,000 miles per second, I thanked the person for correcting me and said, I don't know what I was thinking, but sometimes I can be a real bonehead. But I appreciate the persons that are coming and having a discussion about the information. But no, they don't want to do that. They want to come on the post and they want to start calling you names. And what surprised them is when I get down there with them. There's one guy, I won't call the name of the post that he's on, but there's one post, one lady reposts almost all my articles. And there's this guy over there. I wouldn't call his name out because he's a real jerkhead. And anything she reposts, he's so mad because she puts down the Marxism and just title it that way. We can't stand that because here's a person complimenting this guy and I don't agree with him and she's complimenting him, and so I got to take his stuff and tear it down. So he gets on there and starts name calling. They don't know I go on the post where when I see somebody's reposted what I wrote, I go over there and see what they posted, so I can see what the comments are on that wall, because I know the people that read my wall, they don't dare come on my wall anymore with that stuff, because I've gotten them pretty much, understanding that you throw something out here, you're going to get something back. So I go on her wall, and sure enough, there's this guy. I won't even give his initials out, but he knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about you. And I'm just knucklehead gets on there, and he starts name calling, and I get on there with him. Sometimes we go into the sunset. He won't quit, and I won't quit. And I tell him, as long as you here, I'm going to be here. And he throws something out there, I throw something right back. See, in other words, you're not going to get me in that cul-de-sac, that catch-22 moment where you're going to take the high road. If you take the high road, I take the high road with you. You take the low road, well, I'm going to tell you something. You're better off taking the high road. Because when I hear people talking about I'm from the street, you know what? You can't travel. You can come by airplane. You can go by railway. I come by the street also. I mean, I can't avoid it. There's a street right by my house. We're all from the street. And if they come from the street, homeboy is going to go there with you. And I have to tell you something. I could care less, quite frankly, how you feel about it. I have some friends right now. They want to meet with me now 3 times a week. I used to just be with these guys on Saturday. We have breakfast together. Now they want to be meeting on middle of the week and get some coffee over there at this coffee restaurant over here on Miller Road. And now we're meeting 3 times a week. Now I don't have that much time to be spending over there, running my mouth now. I have to do some studying, but they want to meet and they want to, discuss different things. I'm going this time because they owe me some coffee. I paid for the coffee last time, but this time they got to pay for the coffee. I got to be there for that one. But they tend to say, well, Moss, 30 years ago you said this, this, and this. And I'm sitting there like this right here, like I'm supposed to be a parrot. Some parents don't just say probably want a cracker. It's the parrot repeating his own self. So you didn't say this 30 years ago. I guess not. Because I had read only these many books. Since that time period, I read some more books. And guess what? I came up with some new understanding. So I'm not a parrot, and I don't apologize for saying something different today than I said then.
Well, Rush Limbaugh, a few years ago, I remember him saying something about when Bill Clinton was still president, so it was a long time ago now. But he was saying, now look at this clip, he said this, and then he said he was known for saying this. And Bill Clinton actually said, well, you got to have a courage to change your convictions if you actually kind of, and I mean, I don't like Bill Clinton. Never did. Can't stand the guy. I mean, he was a frat boy who's running the country, okay? Okay, if he was a frat boy, I'd probably enjoy talking to him and hanging out with him on a college scene. He'd probably been a fun guy to hang out with. But anyway, but Rush Limbaugh trashed him for that. I mean, and I think, but I think Bill Clinton in that instance was absolutely correct. I mean, you cannot always have the same opinion after going through life. You can't.
If you learn in it, if you're a person who is a lifelong learner, there's no way that can happen, because you can't know as a younger person what you will know when you're older. How would that happen, that you would know everything at the formative stages of your life? How would you be able to do that? You can't do it. And I can even testify to that from my mother's continuing to hold me in place. My mother would do things I didn't understand. I'd get mad. My mother wouldn't change the rules, thank God. But I would get mad because I couldn't understand what she was saying. My mother would respond by saying, if you think I'm wrong, you live long enough. And I'm thinking as a child that I don't care how long I live. If I live to be 1,000, if I live to be as old as Methuselah, I'm not going to agree with that. But Mark Twain said it for me when he said it for himself about his own experience, when he said that when I was 14 years old, I had the most ignorant father in the world. It was my mother in my case. I didn't think she was ignorant, but I didn't think she was right. And he says it was amazing what his father learned in 7 years. And what he's saying is he lived a little bit longer than that, and he did what my mother told me to do, just live long enough. And I lived long enough. And I think a lot of us say this. I heard Whoopi Goldberg say it. She's still crazy, but at least she could say this, that she started to sound like her mother. When her child turned 16, she was her mother at that point, because she was disagreeing with her mother when she was 16, but when she became a mother and her daughter turned 16, there she was the mother at that point. She had become in the role of the parent at that point. At the role of the child, you don't understand the parent. And that's what you grow into. And I had to learn that, and I have learned it, and I continue to learn it. I will never be the George Moss in the future that I'm the George Moss of right now. I'll always be changing my mind, because any person that is sincere and honest will do that. And if you can show me something that I don't understand and I did not get right, I'm appreciative of that. But I'll tell you what you're not going to do, and nobody on the planet is going to do it. I'd rather be, you'd be surprised what price I'm willing to pay. I'm not going to be on my knees. That's why I criticize those politicians in an article I wrote this morning about them. Because I called them out. This is what I came to the studio to talk about. Basically, the thing that happened in Nevada. I want to commend Clive Bundy. I want to commend you. I think you are a great American. I think Frank Snowden's a great American. The people who are not great the people who are not great Americans are those people up there in Washington. By the way, you politicians in Washington who sent those goons out there, let me tell you what you did last week. Nobody's talked about this. How is it that you are the representatives of the people and you're sending these goons out there to those sites and you're never there?
Like another thing.
How does that happen?
The Democrats noticed, so they backed down. Because the White House said because they don't want Waco and Ruby Ridge to be thrown in the mix in this midterm elections, and that's what it is.
That's what it was, and they also weren't able to get those persons out of that area there. Those people came in that area from all over the United States. 1,000 folks came there. Some of those persons were in fact strapped, John. I don't know if you saw any pictures of them or not. I watched about an hour. They were filming it as it was happening, unfolding. They had the InfoWars that were there, Alice Jones's group. Of course, it wasn't Alex Jones out there, thank God, or somebody who probably got shot. But he sent one of his representatives out there that's much competent than Alex Jones is. Alex Jones does some good work, by the way. I'm not as critical of him as Ben Shapiro is about him. I don't think he's crazy. I just think he's passionate.
He's very passionate. And another thing is too, I've heard from people on the left and people from the right, and I've heard both groups listen to him.
Yeah, they listen to him
because he's basically saying we're the people, but make these people back down.
I respect
those people
him.
in DC.
I would say it differently than he says it, but I admire him because I think he's honest and sincere in what he's doing, and he's a true patriot. And when you are that, I can overlook a lot of scabs on covering up the wounds and things like that. Look, I can overlook a lot of things. If I think you're sincere and some mistakes are made in your sincerity, I don't have a problem with that. Let's have an honest, sincere discussion about it. And you're an honest person, I'm an honest person. We can talk about that without coming to blows with each other. But I can't stand somebody that is talking out of one side of their mouth and don't believe in what they're talking about. And I credit him with a lot of things because of that. He sent one of his guys out there in the field that had been there since Wednesday. And this guy was recording, and while it was happening live, we knew exactly what was going on when it was going on. I was watching the whole thing. I had to pay attention to this, particularly when Cliver Bundy invited people from the country to come there and witness what was going on there. Now, I don't know if anybody's aware of the fact that the BLM, now listen to this right here, the Bureau of Labor Management, what is that about? We need a bureau to manage the land. Here you have the federal government that owns upwards of 80% of the land in Nevada. And they own another 80% approximately, it's maybe around 76%. But in Utah, there's another approximate 80% that they own in the land out there. They own you'd be surprised how much land the federal government owns in this country. And they, if you notice it, I looked at what happened in Nevada as in a more comprehensive way. If you look at what they're saying in Nevada, they run out 52 farmers already, ranchers that were over there ranching, having a ranch where they had the cattle. They ran them out. The BLM, talking about the Bureau of Labor Management, they want to manage them off the land is what they want to do. And they did this. What are they doing what they do in Oregon? Where they talked about they had the subspecies of the owls had to be protected, and ran the people in the timber industry out of there. In California, they're talking about the water have to be carried into the ocean, Pacific Ocean, because the smelts got to have water, and there are crops dying out. What are they doing here? They're shutting the economy down. And that's why I'm going to talk about that when we get to if I get enough time.
They're trying to strangle us. They're trying to strangle us into submission. That's what they are.
That's what they're doing. They're shutting the economy down and making us more dependent upon the federal government because they got some things in mind that they intend to do. And what they have in their mind is tyranny. And that's why when those cowards, and they're basically a bunch of cowards, when the people showed up to witness what was going on and also to stand there on the Second Amendment of the United States of America, on the Constitution of the United States. These guys were heroes. 20 of them on horseback. And they went in there as they did in the West, on horseback, and told the cattle thieves, the BLM cattle thieves, to stand down. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but they drew some lines in the sand and told these people, if you cross that line, they're going to shoot. And those 20 persons on horseback crossed that line. This didn't come across the news. That's what happened. And then they went past the line and went to get those cattle. And the cowards who had been sent by the cowards in Washington stood down because they knew what was going to happen here. People were filming the whole event. They tried, first of all, to keep the media out of there. They didn't want no helicopter, they had a no-fly zone. This no-fly zone, folks, was not in Iraq. They had a no-fly zone in Nevada because they didn't want anybody to witness what they intended to do. But they had people that would not be moved. These were great Americans standing up for the rights to be on the land. This land is my land. this land is your land. They wanted the song to be, this land is the land of the politicians in Washington.
But did you know this guy made a point, and it was on meme. It was a meme on Facebook. The federal government's blew up how many bombs, nuclear bombs in Nevada and Utah, and yet this guy's 900 cows are going to destroy the environment. So bad for these tortoises. And this one guy also posted too. The Stephen Molyneux that you always quote. He said there's 60 million buffalo in the United States at one time at the height of their strength. And yet these 900 cows are going to so severely damage the potential for the survival of this tortoise? No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so, John. And I'm glad you mentioned Stefan Molyneux's angle on it. I have to go back and listen to his angle on that. I always appreciate his point of view. But they are supposed to be protecting over there the subspecies of the tortoise, who is an endangered species. Now, here they are, spending $3 million on this paramilitary operation against this family, this rancher, the last one standing. The other two have already been run off the land, and this is the last one that is standing, and he's not going anywhere, and they want him off the land also. And we're talking here about 600,000 acres of land, and the tortoise they want to save, they are euthanizing those tortoises themselves, because they can't take care of them. And they're actually killing the tortoise, and they're claiming that the cows will do that. Well, they weren't buying it, and the man didn't move, and he invited people to come and help him, and then just come and witness. He wasn't saying come and confront the military. He was just saying come and show up and show that this is not you're dealing with just one family, because they're very verbose when it comes down to. Boisterous when it comes down to dealing with a single family. They go in there, knife you in your bed in at the SWAT team with these weapons pointing at this family, intimidating people, and bringing more force on the scene than is necessary. And people don't even know why they're in their house, kick doors in, and be at the wrong house. We're seeing this more and more. But they went there, and you militia brothers that went over there, and you were strapped, exercising your Second Amendment rights. Where it says that a militia necessary to secure a free people is the people's right to bear arms should not be infringed. That's not term. Those are not words that say unless in these particular cases here. If you want to change it, change the Constitution. But that's what the Constitution says. And they went there. I was looking at some of these persons had things on their hips. They weren't playing. And they went there to tell the BLM, which had no authority to be there in the first place. We don't know Bureau of Labor Man. You don't manage no land that nothing is on. What are you managing out there? Ain't nothing on the land. You're not building anything.
Hear about the speculation that Harry Reid's son is behind. He was part of this group that it's involved with this Chinese firm that's supposed to be creating solar panels and solar energy, and they're the ones that wanted this land. No, allegedly, this is all rumor. I haven't checked it out. I'm gonna repeat it though, because I think it's probably accurate. In my opinion, I think it's pretty accurate.
I read the documents.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, I read the documents. In the documents that they see what they did on the. I have it on my website in terms of where it was located. They scrubbed it so it would not be up there. And once they found that was attention being placed upon this situation in Nevada, they scrubbed it. But fortunately, it was captured and put back up there by another group, and I was able to read it. And it did mention that particular rancher as a person interfering with the solar panels, which I think that's why Glenn Beck had it wrong. Glenn Beck's thing was that what Harry Reid and his son had in mind was something 150 miles away from where this took place. But if that were the case, that the solar panels, in terms of the agreement, they're trying to get an agreement signed with, of all places, believe it or not, China, which is in fact communist. What are they doing in there, right? It was 150 miles away. Then why did they mention that ranch and say that those cattle that are roaming around would be interference in what they had in mind? Why would they mention that if that was not in fact part of what they were doing there? And I think that we need an investigation here. Harry Reid needs to be investigated. And we know for a fact that some of those threats that we're making over there, where they're telling people from the outside, one of the state legislators said that if anybody come in from Nevada in here, they better get some body bags ready. Well, what was that about if that wasn't the mafia? We need an investigation. and I don't know if we'll get it because Harry Reid is the majority leader in the Senate. It won't be that for long if things go according to what it looks like in the polls. We're going to stand him down from that position. Hopefully, when he comes up for re-election in 2016, somebody will come to many people will come to an understanding. This man has got to go. We don't need him up there in Washington making these illicit kinds of deals. And if he is found to be culpable in that situation, and the reason why that BLM SWAT team is in there, those goons came in there, and it's because of anything that he has anything to do with that, then we need to remove him from office, unfit for the position, which that's powerful, of course, because everything he does shows he's unfit for the position. But I'm glad that they stood down. I'm glad nobody got hurt. Well, can't say nobody. No, that there was no violence on the side of the citizenry, although there was violence on the side of those who came in there to do much more harm than they did. But they stood down because they understood they had confrontation on their hand, and they could not let this get out because the government has to wear a mask that hides its tyranny, and it was going to be exposed if they use force beyond a certain point. In that situation, but they came there to use force. Otherwise, they would not have had 200 persons there. And I was told live they had snipers on the ridges in that arena. So they came there for a fight, but they didn't expect to have. They didn't expect too much of it to be a fight in terms of something coming back at them. And when they pulled out of there, to show you how paranoid they got about the confrontation that was going to happen, is that they backed away. They didn't walk with their backs to anybody. They backed up to leave the scene and announced that they were going to leave, where everybody would know that whatever they had in mind, that was no longer tenable. I guess they got some orders also from the higher ups, and they pulled out of there as they should have, and they shouldn't have gone there in the first place. Well, we'll talk about the other topic next week, but I just really think we have to look at that situation and ask the question of what is going on here. And we do have some power to respond to it. We can do something about it in November. We should send some people home. And we'll be talking about that on a weekly basis here.
We should send some people to prison.
And send some to prison as well. Because we've got to get a handle on our politicians who think that they have us working for them. I mean, we're paying these guys salary. It's like they feel that they are masters, and in some ways they are that. And I'm going to show next week when we get to the second topic that I was going to talk about today, but I didn't get around to. I'm going to talk about the money, how money operates in this country, and I think you're going to be surprised about some things here that it's going to surprise you of how it actually operates. And I think I'll be able to show you where we are in more trouble than you think we are. These politicians have done a lot more to this country than what meets the surface. What's on the surface and what's visible. And when you understand what they've done to the United States of America, John has understated by saying some of them should be in prison. I think probably most of them should be locked up for the treason they've committed against this country. And it's been going on for a while. We're going to trace that next week. Before I get off the air, today I want to mention at least two books. I try to bring some books to the studio each time so we can begin to talk about some things. You can begin to get more understanding from some books that we bring here. And one of them is called 33 Questions About American History You're Not Supposed to Ask, by the great Thomas E. Woods Jr., Dr. Thomas Woods. And another book that I just got through the mail that he wrote, 2007, that a book came out, New York Times bestseller, called Back on the Road to Serfdom, The Resurgence of Statism. And we're seeing that. We saw it in Nevada. Want you, I think we're running out of time here, John, is that right? Want you, as always, to follow your dream. Don't let anybody take your dream from you. Follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.